Hey guys, welcome back to Tech Spec. I appreciate you stopping by. Let's talk Galaxy Z Fold 4. It's hard to believe this is already the 4th generation, but they've made some small improvements this year. If the Z Flip 4 is the cheaper foldable meant for the masses, then the Z Fold 4 fills the spot as its more impressive, but much more expensive, bigger brother. But is it worth its high asking price? Let's dive in. At a starting price of $1,800,
You're charging too high prices, you right to jail.
the Z Fold 4 needs to offer a whole lot more than your typical flagship phone to really turn heads, but I'm happy to say that it mostly does this. Samsung decided not to reinvent the wheel this year, instead opting for small, iterative improvements over last year's Z Fold 3, starting with the front screen. They've shrunk the bezels ever so slightly by about 3mm, but it feels much more usable than last year's Fold 3. At 6.2 inches tall, the screen is pretty narrow, so any increase in screen width is definitely welcome, and it improves typing on the screen and just general everyday use. It gets plenty bright and offers 120Hz refresh rate for snappy performance. But with that said, moving inside to the star of the show, the 7.6-inch inner screen also sees a few quality of life improvements. The bezels are again slightly reduced, and it gets really bright with excellent color reproduction. It is a Samsung screen after all. The camera inside is also a little more hidden this year compared to last year, and I could definitely tell a difference in day-to-day use. Or not see it. That's the point, right? You kind of just forget it's there when you're using the phone. Now the crease inside looks and feels about the same as the Z Fold 3, but you don't notice it as much as you might think. Especially like with the Flip 4, which has you running your finger over it frequently to scroll pages. I know the crease is a big deal to some people, but it's not nearly as bad as you probably imagine. Moving around to the outside, and yeah, it's pretty hard to tell the difference in the new model. It's got excellent build quality with aluminum rails and a nice matte finish on the back, and I really like the new gray-green color I've got here. The fingerprint reader is built into the power button, and it's so much better than the end-screen buttons on the rest of Samsung's phones. They should probably all be like this. One update to the outside this year are flattened edges all around, replacing the more rounded edges of the Fold 3, and I think it's a better look overall. Now being that it is a foldable, this thing is heavy, and about as thick as 2 regular phones stacked on top of one another. Samsung actually reduced the weight a little this year, but it still feels like you're holding 2 phones when you have it folded up or place it in your pocket. There's still a small visible gap you can see through when you look at it folded, but Samsung says the hinge has been redesigned to be a little smaller this year, and it's an improvement, if only slightly. It's also got IPX8 water resistance, but it doesn't offer any dust resistance. I imagine this would really mess up the hinge, so try to avoid things like sand or dirt.
If you mess this up.
Now powering all those pixels is the newest Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1.
Say what?
12GB of RAM, up to 1TB of storage, and a 4400 mAh battery. The processor is a big step up from the Snapdragon 8, and everything just flies on this phone, especially when you combine it with the 120Hz screen. The battery is the exact same size as last year, which is a little disappointing, but it actually hasn't been an issue. The improved processor has really upped the battery efficiency, and I've been getting much better battery life than I was on the Fold 3. It's not a 2-day phone for sure, but I've yet to go to bed at less than 20% each night with pretty heavy usage. Charging speeds top out at 25 watts, which I'd love to see be faster, and wireless charging tops out at 10 watts. It's super slow, it took an hour and 45 minutes from zero.
Slow down! I want to get there, but I want to get there alive!
There's also reverse wireless charging for things like watches and headphones if you need a quick top off, but that will drain your battery pretty quickly. A couple more things of note. The dual speakers are actually really good and help get a real immersive experience when you're watching content on the big interior screen. There's also S Pen support again, which I've never really used, but I'm sure some people still swear by it. Unfortunately, there's not a really good way to tote around the S Pen without using a clunky case, so keep that in mind if you want to go that route. So let's talk about the software. There's a new taskbar that lives at the bottom of the inside screen, and I'm really surprised Samsung just came up with this in the 4th generation. It feels a bit more like a PC, and you can jump between frequently used apps much quicker. Power users will also love the multitasking abilities of the Fold 4, as you can have multiple screens open at once, and the new software tweaks really let you get them arranged exactly how you want them, whether it's picture-in-picture or side-by-side. You can do up to 3 at once, and it really feels like a desktop sometimes. The new taskbar is exclusive to the Fold 4 currently, but I could see it coming to the older devices at some point down the road. Now, not every app is optimized for this, and you'll encounter plenty of bugs like some apps not scaling correctly or recent apps disappearing, but hopefully this can be refined down the line with software updates. It also struggles with custom launchers as they're clearly not optimized for swapping between 2 displays. All that being said, it's a really great software experience overall, and I really like the flexibility the phone provides. Now there are 5 cameras on this phone and they are all pretty solid. Not class leading by any means, but there's not going to be anything you want to shoot that these can't handle. We've already talked about the inner screen camera, which is only 4 megapixels. I would say avoid using that one if you can. But the 10 megapixel selfie camera on the front screen fares a little bit better since it doesn't have to hide under the screen. Now the main three on the back are a 50 megapixel wide, a 12 megapixel ultra wide, and a 10 megapixel telephoto lens with 3 times optical zoom and a 30 times digital zoom. The 50 megapixel lens has a larger sensor this year that should help with low light photos, and the other two lenses really only see improvements brought on by the new chipset. This isn't going to outperform the S22 Ultra, but the Fold 4 does offer more flexibility for getting the shot you want, like using the front screen as a viewfinder. Okay, so final thoughts. Should you go out and buy this? Well, yes and no. I used the Z Fold 3 last year, and I thought the form factor and things it had to offer just wouldn't really work for my use case. But coming back around this year, using the Fold 4, something just clicked for me. I can't even really put my finger on what it is, as the upgrades are pretty minimal, especially if you're coming from last year's model. But I find myself just reaching for this phone again and again and wanting to use it. The asking price is really high, honestly too high, which will probably turn a lot of people away, but it feels like Samsung has nearly perfected the folding phone. But what do you guys think? Can you see yourself using the Z Fold 4, or do you think folding phones are just a niche market? Let me know. I appreciate you watching as always. And if you liked it, please subscribe. Until next time.